don't understand why you're 40 years old and playing the game still. So.
Well, I mean, what game do you think you're going to be playing when you're 40? When do you think you're going to stop playing games? What's the age? What's the cutoff age?
When you're out of high school and college.
You're a high school kid?
Yeah, I'm in high school. Yeah.
How old are you?
Why does it matter?
Well, I mean, you foresee yourself in the future quitting something you love, like video games? Do you not love video games? You just cruise through it.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time when you're that old. But...
Well, how do you know? You're not old yet. I mean, I can think of probably reasons that video games would be a waste of time for a high school kid, too. Do you have a 4.0? Are you in honor classes to get more than a 4.0?
No, but...
You know what I'm saying? There's more things you could be doing to improve your life than playing video games, too, right?
Yeah, you can study and not play games.
Hey, just recreation, man. Having fun. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
All right, then.
All right. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to... Oh, I should put some music in the background. Welcome to the Week in Culture, Honey Badger Arcade with John, the problematic white guy. What's up, John? How you doing?
Oh, awesome as always. How are you doing this fine weekend?
Actually, pretty good. I've been having a bit of a hard time with various, let's say, health issues, and it's been really rainy and stormy, but today was pretty nice. I slept well. I was able to take the dog out. We went for a nice long walk. Jojo is now sleeping right here. I've included him, his own cam on the stream here, so you guys can see that Jojo is good and tired. And yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Like straight up. So yeah, not bad.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So, what was I gonna say? Playing some music now, so that we don't have a lot of dead air.
Just getting my morning coffee out of the way. So.
All right. What's up, Robert Johnson, Fracas Maximus, Stream Elements? That's not actually a person. That's just my stream element. Yeah. So, and he's saying Jojo. Yes, Jojo is here. Now people will finally watch, right? Now they'll get engaged. That's what it takes.
What people have been waiting for. Yes.
Yeah, this is it. It's the dog. We can all go home now. I'm just gonna put Jojo on full screen and walk away. You know what? I bet if I did, this would be a very popular channel. I'm not kidding. I actually have like a GoPro that I can put on him, and like it's got like a rig and stuff. And I haven't used it yet. And it could be fun. I don't know. I'm not sure if putting a camera on your dog is animal abuse. So I'm like on the fence on that. So
the Jojo
not
GoPro
sure.
Stream, you know?
Yeah, the Jojo GoPro. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. But anyway, we got a lot of stories to get into. So we should probably like get on it. So the first thing. Yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Busy all of a sudden yesterday. Like this
yeah.
Week, like it was kind of dragging. It's like, all right, well, I guess we can kind of talk about this stuff then yesterday. Woo. But yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So I guess the first thing that's kind of blowing my mind is that Susan Wojcicki's passed away. So you guys know, is this how you say her name? Wojcicki or Wojcicki?
It works. It's good enough. Mama Susan.
Former Mama Susan, former CEO of YouTube. Passed away. I think she was like 50, 57 or 59 of cancer. She was apparently fighting a struggle with cancer, and the cancer won. And rest in peace is all I will say about that. However, it does raise questions. I think it's a bit strange. I mean, what do you think about this? What do you think?
Well, her cancer was described as aggressive turbo cancer that came on strong in the last 2 years, kind of seemingly out of nowhere. Like so many other people that have had weird complications in this post-COVID hell world. But you know, I mean, I don't want to like insinuate anything. It's just it is kind of interesting that the person who spent a number of years, trying to police our speech and protect us from ourselves, who was fully vaccinated, is seemingly no longer amongst us to watch out for us and the steps we take going forward. So yeah, interesting times, huh?
Yeah. Did you also, speaking of COVID and masks, is it okay if we talk about this now, or are we still in danger of getting like?
I think that enough news has come out at this point in time that they really can't, like, until they do their next one, which is kind of what I think this rainy season that came out of nowhere might be about.
Yeah.
Because we are in some dude, it's like this election cycle is like, it is something else. I don't know if you heard the little snippet of news about Trump's plane being
I heard something yeah. What would you tell is it? Tell me a little bit about that. I didn't know about that. And if you have like a link or something, you send it through.
They had to do an emergency they had to do an emergency landing in Montana.
Yeah, because that's where he was speaking. Yeah.
Right. And they evidently had some kind of issues with their Boeing jet, which that's all too common lately as well. So everything seemingly, nothing, terrible happened, obviously, but it is just kind of another one of those things, like we were saying just, a couple weeks ago on episode 1, like, it's nothing is off the table at this point in time. And the next few months are going to be quite interesting. Just the strange things that have already occurred, the many strange things that have yet to occur that I'm sure we're going to be just as gobsmacked by, and just kind of like, all right, well, I guess it's another thing over the course of the next 4 months is really.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Speaking from my corner of the world, I guess, there's been a lot of prophetic talk about how this year is going to get really crazy. Like it started already. There's been just like one thing after another, assassination attempts and people like dropping out of the race and new people coming in and white men for Harris, whatever. Right. But like
so many precedent breaking kind of moments.
And also some of the stuff we're going to be talking about, like Elon Musk against GARM and all this. But like when I think that by maybe not even just like November, because that's a little bit too America centric. I mean, look at what's happening in the UK. Look at what's happening in Europe. Look at what happened recently in Sweden, right? Look at what's going on with Iran. Like this is insane stuff everywhere. And I mean, I'm not one to like, invoke revelations, but I feel like we're in the, like, that this happens a lot where people start, saying this is revelations, but I honestly think we might actually be starting on that path, like legitimately.
It is a pretty stark revelation when a person who was basically one of the figureheads for safety and fairness censorship doctrines, which we are basically talking about today, and all the stuff that surrounds this very issue, all is happening in like the last, 5 days. It seems like there's definitely something going on. And talk about, like, I know I would like to think that it's completely random chance that Mama Susan's passing just happens to be the very week that all this stuff is coming out also, because this is who she was. She was the physical person that is GARM within the YouTube ranks, which we'll get further into when we actually start digging into some of these articles from the WEF and the perpetrators themselves at the Global Alliance for Responsible Media and an advertiser group name I can't remember right off the top of my head, but we'll pull it up when we get
let's get to that. Let's do that right now. So one thing I wanted to, there were a couple of little sort of like more gamer culture stuff that I wanted to also bring up. But let's start with the GARM thing, because I think it's like the biggest thing, isn't it? Like that and this NFL thing that you were talking about. I'd like to get to
and
those.
The NFL thing is going to be more like it's stealth implications. But yeah, this GARM thing, this will probably be the brunt of what we talk about.
All right. Let's go. Let's take a look at the article then. So, I'm starting with this New York Post article. Okay, shadowy ad cabal GARM shuts down after Elon Musk's X files antitrust suit over censorship. All right. So the left-leaning advertising cabal. Leave me alone. By the way, I'm using a great what is it? Browser? It's Opera. I think it's called Opera. Heard about it from Grade A Under A. So if you guys don't know, Grade A Under A is pretty great, and he recommended this browser. It's because one of the reasons why I think this is great is because I noticed that there's a lot of like extremely ad heavy websites, and the ad blocker on this is really good.
Built in.
Yeah, it's built in, but it's really good too. So I don't have to sweat like pop-ups and all kinds of goofiness. So all right, but anyway, this is from the New York Post. The left-leaning advertising cabal, accused of conspiring to suppress conservative outlets, was reportedly disbanded on Thursday, just days after Elon Musk slapped the group with a federal antitrust lawsuit. The World Federation of Advertisers, which organized as the Global Alliance for Responsible Media Initiative, that's what GARM is, informed its members that GARM was discontinuing activities, according to an email obtained by Business Insider. WFA CEO Stephen Lowerk, I guess, said in his email, the decision to shutter GARM was not made lightly and cited the initiative status as a non-profit with limited resources. Usually when they tell you they're non-profits, they're lying. They're often astroturfed, not at all get grassroots. What were you going to say?
Yeah, those nonprofits, the way they're structured is specifically so that they can be financial clearinghouses, basically, and so that they're just used for pump and dump schemes and all forms of ways of generating revenue and other forms of financial fuckery. So,
yeah, definitely. All right, so GARM came under fire last month after a damning House Judiciary Committee alleged its radical executive Robert Rakowitz coordinated a campaign to stifle free speech and restrict ads to a slew of news outlets and online platforms, including the Post. In its bombshell lawsuit earlier this week, X accused GARM and the WFA of organizing an illegal ad boycott that cost the social media platform billions of dollars in advertising revenue. Aside from GARM and WFA, a handful of major companies, CVS Health, Mars, Orsted, and Unilever, were named as defendants. X is seeking trebled compensatory damages and injunctive relief. The WFA's membership includes dozens of the world's largest companies, including Disney, Coca-Cola, and Adidas, that collectively control 90% of global marketing spending, according to its website. Ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino said GARM's shutdown was, quote, an important acknowledgement and a necessary step in the right direction. No small group should be able to monopolize what gets monetized, end quote, she added in her post to the social media site. If you want to jump in on anything, let me know.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
So like, you know the golden rule, right? Those who have the gold make the rules, and that's ostensibly what this whole GARM thing was quite literally about. When we get into the WEF documents and their own WFA documents and all the stuff, it says we are carving out the policies and the laws specifically so that we have, privilege in this area because we don't want to be beholden to any kind of thing that might be considered to be unsafe or problematic, if you will, whatever the word du jour is for the moment, for them to kind of get you all caught up in your fear spot. And it's crazy because it's one thing to read an article that's from a human being who actually is just trying to talk
inform
about
people
that article. Right. But when you actually start reading their documents and it's in all their corpo speak, and it's saying it very clearly in a mundane, boring method so that you just kind of it passes through you and thinking about what the words mean. But once you actually know what any of this stuff is, and if you're someone like you and I who this is what we dabble in daily, it's I see just I'm reading it, I'm just how can anybody read this thing without freaking out? It's screaming, revealing everything that it's doing in the most kind, polite, mundane language that it can possibly try to get away with. But it's straight up just saying, yeah, we reserve the right to make you beholden to what we deem to be necessary for our profits, which are based on measures of engagement. So, you know, this whole thing comes down to, we want you to be caught up in the back and forth of the conversation, if you will, but you're only allowed to, you know, speak, like we were saying last week, you know, sing from this hymn book, use these words. Anything that you say, step out of line, well, that's an infraction, and that's going to immediately get you sidelined. And, you know, we will see this in marginal steps, but also at the same time this week, we see how far they've gone drastically in the UK in no short order. So the idea that this GARM institution folded so quickly, to me, just simply means that the safety and fairness doctrine that they operate under, which is the language they start to reveal in their own documentation, that's what's going to happen. Is they're just going to find a way to you know, rebrand and relabel the whole thing. And as long as that shell corporation that all that corruption took place through is now inaccessible for evidence and the like, that's the reason they shut it down. Because if it went to discovery, then we'd really be, you know. And so it's kind of like that whole thing, like, you know, like liability experts, they don't do payouts unless it's going to cost the company, you know, less money to do the payout than it is to just do each individual claim on insurance. And that's what you're looking at here. You know, they just said, look, we're cooked. They've already got us on this much. If we just dissolve the organization, everything like that, they can't get anything any further. And we're dealing with sorcery here. So it's about, you know, making things, you know, blunted and opaque and as inaccessible, you know, as possible to anybody's convenience, because they just want it all to be on your, you know, expense. And anytime that anybody in the situation is going to have to, you know, make any bends, it's not going to be them. And that's ostensibly what this whole GARM, you know, association and all their policy work for the last 50 years has been building towards. And so this really is, when you start talking about what is DEI and ESG, it's the policy work. And this is, you know, when you actually start getting into these documents, this is the heart of DEI and ESG, other than the financial component, which is run through think tanks that are funded by the WEF and the UN through the Rothschild corporations.
Yeah.
So
that's right. All very true stuff. All right, let's get back to the article. I appreciate the mention of the Rothschilds. Okay, so in an interview with the Post, let me make sure that I didn't miss. Oh yeah, because I do also want to look at the actual GARM website too. I know you sent me a couple links, but I want to finish this article so that people understand where the story is. So, the WFA, I already read that part, I'm sorry. Lork said in the email that WFA and GARM would still fight X's lawsuit in Texas federal court and express confidence that the outcome would, quote, demonstrate our full adherence to competition rules in all of our activities, end quote. When reached for comment, a WFA spokesperson said the group would share a statement on its decision shortly. In an interview with the Post, House Judiciary Chairman Representative Jim Jordan, pictured here, I believe, Republican from Ohio, called GARM's demise, quote, great news for freedom, free markets, First Amendment, and all the good things that make America special, end quote. Jordan said the committee's investigation is ongoing and remains focused on potential antitrust violations. The World Federation of Advertisers, we think, has the same bias, Jordan said. Our investigation is looking at all of that. It's all about stopping the censorship, however it's done. As the Post reported last week, the House Judiciary Committee sent out letters to more than 40 companies to provide information and preserve documents related to the inquiry. Adidas, American Express, Bayer, BP, Carhartt, Chanel, CVS, and General Motors were among the companies that received letters. And here's Robert Rakowitz, which sounds like a villain from like a Disney movie. Like he'd be like a rat guy or something, you know.
Yeah, well, he's like a racketeering and shit, you know. He's like a cartoon villain, dude. Separately, at least two Republican state attorneys general are known to be examining evidence surfaced by the House and weighing possible legal action. Rakowitz's actions have drawn heavy scrutiny in the House Judiciary Committee's investigation. In one internal email obtained by the panel's investigators,
Rakowitz appeared to brag up that X was 80% below revenue forecasts since GARM targeted Musk over brand safety issues. Rakowitz later claimed the email was meant as a self-effacing joke. Okay, almost done here. GARM is also said to have exhibited bias against the Daily Wire, Fox News, comedian Joe Rogan's podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, and other outlets accused of spreading disinformation. And by the way, what's funny about this is that all of those listed, Daily Wire, Fox News, and The Joe Rogan Experience, are totally milquetoast like places. They're absolutely part. Well, I don't know about Joe, but like Daily Wire and Fox News are part of what people call conservative Inc. They're very safe, like not at all, in my opinion, boundary pushing in terms of like the conversation or even, but yet it's still too far, right for the internet apparently. For these people at GARM.
They would so much call Joe Rogan safe so much as they probably think of him as a controlled opposition in the sense that, they can clamp down and remove his episodes and do all the stuff that they've done, but they can't really stop him from being himself and having the conversations that he has.
Right.
They do,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe, I don't know. Like I said, I'm glad that he exists. Like, I think that you need people like Joe, out there doing stuff. But for me, I don't very often find him all that like intriguing in terms of like his content because I've already had these conversations. Well, I've already seen this perspective. So
it's like when you put the focus on Joe Rogan, you kind of miss the point because it's like he's an interviewer.
Yeah,
he's there to like just kind of ask questions, let people kind of reveal themselves. So
yeah, and that's the thing too. But even then, it's too far for these organizations. Right. Like just having because like Joe, he used to have on guys like he had on Bernie Sanders. He's had on like Tucker Carlson. Safe. Like he's all over the place, right? Some of those are safe. Some of those are beyond the pale. I think actually Tucker's podcast, I saw some numbers that he's actually surpassed Joe in terms of like people, viewership. And I think the reason is because he's talking to people that are like, I don't want to say really out there. That's the way I don't want to frame it. But they're beyond the surface, right. Like he had a guest, I can't remember the guy's name, but he had a guest on recently that was like, they had a whole 2-hour conversation about Watergate. And this guy he was part of the whole, he was there, like he, involved with Richard Nixon and everything. And I was fascinated by it because, I knew that Watergate was like, what, think about it. Let's just briefly talk about this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Nixon, like when I talked to Richard Nixon was at the time, like one of the most, if not the most popular president in U.S. history, according to the polls and stuff like that. But when people today think of him, like if I just say Richard Nixon, normal people, they have a completely different perspective on what kind of person he was, and it's all like the Futurama head in a jar thing, it's I am not a crook. It is that's all people know. And they believe that, it is absolutely a caricature, but it's like, I think it might even be the opposite of reality. But the point is, though, getting back to Tucker, because this isn't really about Nixon. I'm just saying Tucker is talking to people that present, Tucker is talking to people that are talking about things that used to be, or we would normally have considered to be sacred cows. Like there are things about the world and about our history that you are just expected to believe. You are supposed to go along with it and you cannot question it. And they'll do this. They'll reframe history itself. Right. So and this is to control what people think about the present by controlling the past. And this, Tucker's talking to people who are giving this reframe. They're saying, no. The truth about Richard Nixon is this. And here's I was there and I've written a book on it and I have all these sources and here's here's all my evidence. And it's like, if you take the time to sit down and listen, you're just going to be like, whoa, this is nothing. Like, I learned about things about the Crusades that no one, well, at least most people, don't realize, because when we think of the Crusades, we think, oh, here's the bad stuff that Christians did. And it's like, no, that's not the truth about the Crusades. Or when you learn the truth about the Inquisition. Like there was a guy made a great video called The Inquisition Was Good, actually, and it explains how, the Inquisition is one of these, the Spanish Inquisition specifically, but although there were other Inquisitions, but explains how the Spanish Inquisition is nothing like what we are led to believe. Like what we are led to believe about it today.
For one thing.
Yeah, right. But those guys were a part of that, though. Like, whether they knew it or not, like that was a part of the narrative. Is even in the humorous way. We see it in little ways and big ways,
Right.
But anyway, I'm getting like really off in the weeds. Yeah, but I think this is important to understand, because GARM, when Elon Musk first bought Twitter, there was all of this concern about people pulling their advertising. Like, oh, we can't support. I wonder what GARM's involvement is with that. I wonder. So, just something
to a high degree.
Yeah, I would imagine.
When you read those other articles, yeah, like I say, the way that it lays out the language in those articles, like there is no question as to why they folded the operation, because it's just like, wow, like as soon as you start looking at it, and because it's one of those things that just exists in plain sight, and it's so mundane and boring, nobody was paying attention to it for like 50 years.
It is, yeah.
It's very until Elon Musk, who is, I don't trust anyone. I don't even really necessarily trust myself. I don't know where I'm going. I'm on the journey, and we'll find out when I get to the destination. And so like I take Musk as like, he's a far better actor to engage with in these times than others, for sure. And like his specific foray into media and trying to like do that under his own guise of this is what's important to me, principle and value wise.
Yeah, because
that is as much of a opposition to what is the rest of the media at this point in time. That's the reason why I'm willing to, at least, I don't have to agree with the guy 100%. I don't even have to trust him to at least appreciate what's happening in this moment. But there is a part of me that kind of looks at, because I always view it with a little bit of suspicion and just kind of like what are they showing you, and what is this a setup for? Is Musk defeating GARM, quote unquote, in a sense, just a quick way to kind of like, lampshade it, and so nobody has to think about it anymore? I can't quite say. It's still a little too early for that to be the case. But when you, like I say, look at what their own language is about what any of this advertising dominance is for, it is specifically that. It's a reservation of power. In no, uncertain terms, it implicitly is basically stating this is the globalist threat, and we are going to run everything through legalistic, means via, the court process that has been slanted in our favor because of, these kinds of organizations and the policy work that they do and all the bureaucracy that they get caught up in. And that's exactly what it says in the paperwork. And it is just so clear cut. And it's just like, when you actually see it, you're just like, why would anybody allow anything like this to operate? It's like, because most people don't pay attention to boring shit like this. And that's how we end up, in this weird, COVID hell world, that just kind of seemingly came out of nowhere, even though it was built up over the course of decades of, research and development. So,
yeah. All right. So let's look at the GARM website, I guess. So we got this, is it the About GARM? Is that the one, or this Global Alliance for Responsible Media?
All of them have like little, like you'll be reading along, and like all of a sudden, like a passage just captures your imagination as to like, wow, what's that really saying right there? So like you can go into any of them.
Yeah.
They're all
let's look at what it is. So this is connected to the World Economic Forum. That's. I mean, I would say red flag, but I think that's a little
Not
bit
foreboding,
obvious.
right?
Yeah, not at all foreboding. So, the World Economic Forum, and this is they're one of their projects. So, Global Alliance for Responsible Media, with nearly 3.8 billion people online, the world is increasingly connected, and yet the increase in dangerous, hateful, disruptive, and fake content online
They start
risks
right out of the
threatening
gate.
our global community. Holy cow.
Right.
You wanna
It's
say
like
anything to
right out
that?
of the gate. They don't even like, and they don't even skip a beat, and it's just like it's all of a sudden just like fear mongering and like thought control. Like
Yeah, right out. Yep, right out of the bag. Um, so members of the Global Alliance for Responsible Media recognize the role that advertisers can play in collectively pushing to improve the safety of online environments. Together, they are collaborating with publishers. What?
nudging,
Yeah,
Nudging it like-
that definitely.
Yeah, that's one of their nice little words they use to soften the language. Oh, we try to nudge people in the right direction.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yes.
these articles are so revealing.
Yeah, well, they think that like people can't, because like if you, it's not hard to like trick people when you cloak everything in, in this like idea of safety. And that's like what it is, right? Yeah, safety, fairness, equality, whatever, respect, whatever it is,
Mhm.
right? Like inclusion. And a lot of normies will basically just buy, oh, inclusion, that's a nice word. I like that word. It's
Yeah.
nice. I'm going to go along with that, And they don't realize it is really what it is control. Like that's what it is.
These people are quite honestly marketing masters. Like, and
Yeah.
I do mean that in every sense of the word, master. Like they can break your, like they can think around your thought processes, and if they can't, they've got a robot that was built
Yeah.
to do just that. And like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's crazy.
All right. So together they are collaborating with publishers and platforms to do more to address harmful and misleading media environments and to develop and deliver against the concrete set of actions, processes, and protocols for protecting brands. The project focuses on addressing the following challenges: hate speech. How do you define hate speech?
Exactly.
Like what is it? What is hate speech? This is what they want to address the following
Right.
challenges.
Right.
Hate speech.
Right.
What is that? Bullying. What is that? Disinformation.
Exactly.
What is that? Like none of these are clearly defined. It's all very,
Right, none of
very
these things
vague.
are objectively able to be governed in any way, shape, or form. Like it's all subjective rhetoric and bullshit, and like and then
Yeah.
considering that it's coming from the World Economic Forum specifically, when you talk about what kind of influence and what the intent is behind it, it's pretty clear. It's the reservation of power for the most, financially solvent corporations on the planet to run roughshod over us and tell us that we can't do anything that might make their brands look bad. Like we have
Yep.
to compromise our rights as people because these institutions that are conceptual at best do not want to be held accountable for being, next to us because they put their goddamn graffiti advertising bullshit on and in everything, and because they can't help themselves from putting their smear on all of it, we're the ones who have to pay the cost, the tax, which is don't say this, don't do that, and if you do any of these things that we made sacred cows that you're not to touch, well, you might get locked up for 38 years or some stupid crazy shit like they're doing in the UK right now.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. All right. So the project focuses on addressing the following challenges. I read hate speech, bullying, disinformation. So disinformation is when essentially you make a mistake. Like this is how it would be categorized if we were being like really good
If you
faith.
make a mistake. Disinformation is if you
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Disinformation is when you intentionally mislead, right? Like you know the truth, but you're intentionally being misleading. And this is all the stuff that these people engage in, by the way. Like this whole document is essentially a disinformation screed.
And the easiest way to remember is disinformation is like deception and misinformation is a mistake.
Yeah.
But
Right.
ultimately, this is all conjecture and bullshit opinions to try to go and make it so that because I don't like the things that you're saying and you're causing discord in my harmonious hive mind of just a test pattern of nothingness, well, we have to stop that. And like, you know, you and I both went to art school, so you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the principles of harmony and discord. They're essential for art to exist. Because if you don't have the discord is actually more important than the harmony. The harmony is there to kind of like, you know, have these unifying elements, but it's the discord where you actually find the personality and the character and what that song is actually about, you know? And so when they try to like say, we're going to remove discord from the world, well, they're ostensibly saying that they want to turn us into a test pattern and they just want us to be robots.
Yeah. So that's disinformation. Then there's use of personal data, which of course they have no problem doing. Like they're totally okay with all of this. I don't even know how they could claim, oh, they're going to address the challenge. No.
Right.
No.
They do all the things. This is such projection list. It's
Yeah, right. We are going to use your personal data. I mean, like they already do. Like my phone is listening to me all the time. So like this is not.
We will get into with the NFL thing too, because that's deceptive.
Yeah, for sure. And then it ends on the goal is to accelerate and advance the role that advertisers can play in collectively pushing to improve the safety of online environments. This alliance drives uncommon collaboration to improve the safety, trustworthiness, and sustainability of media. Ooh, that word sustainability.
Right. Sustainability of media, though. That phrase right
there,
that is their focus. The sustainability of media. Not truth, not honesty, not society, media.
Yes.
So they are quite clearly telling you this is about our magic. We want to.
And they know that media, they know that media is how they shape people's perception of reality. That this is like
sorcery, dude.
The reason, it's the reason why, you know, we talk, like, if you ever, like, so I have to watch a couple of videos for a response we're doing tomorrow on Honey Badger Radio, and I hate doing it because I have to watch these, like, these big, long, they're essentially video essays made by feminists, and they're talking about whatever. It doesn't matter what they're talking about, because all of these things boil down to this kind of like word. Well, no, it's like this word magic that they're doing. Like they're trying to like get you to see the world in another way. And this is one of the reasons why they're so addicted to media, because they use media to make their case. So think about this, okay? Go ahead.
Are used for channeling spirits. Media.
Yeah.
You know, they used to be people when it was actual, but now medium just means like, you know, what kind of, you know, material you're using, whether it's a radio source, video source, you know, paint source, your canvas, whatever. But I'm so fun. You go ahead.
No, it's okay. So what I'm getting at is that, you know, they use existing media, film, literature, television, animation, video games now. They've added that, music, whatever it is, things that we as human beings need. So we need to see like some form of media because we understand the power of story in like a deep way, like in a deep, you know, it's as old as we are. Like, exactly. So like, you know, you got, you know, prehistoric men sitting around a campfire, and they're essentially trying to like share wisdom about the world with their children.
We would cease being a people, and that's what you know, the Dark Ages were about. That's what the burning of the Great Library was all about.
Well,
that's what the, you know, censorship of the internet is.
And you can exactly, and you can see that if our media degrades and turns into garbage, our ability to think and speak also turns to garbage. Like.
Exactly.
Look at the state of the music industry today. Like most of it is like it isn't at all sophisticated in many areas, especially where it is most popular, because that low IQ entertainment is coming out of people's inability to form words when they're talking with each other. and we need to be able to speak in order to be able to think, and more than just speak, we need to be able to speak to other human beings, exchange ideas with them, and
Right.
build, you know, a conversation over time. And that's how we grow. That's how we expand our. This is why it's important that we have a functional vocabulary.
Not hieroglyphics or emojis.
Right, and not exactly, so that we can speak to each other clearly and get our ideas across.
Right.
And
Concise.
the desire to control media by these, like,
Yep.
essentially commies, is so that we can't articulate, you know, like, our thoughts
We're on the
clearly.
precipice edge of bleeding technology for a reason, you know, because just think about it this way. We live in these simple solution, push button kind of reality world where it's like, oh, just do the thing and I've got it reduced down to all you have to do is push a button. Anytime you push that button, whoever set up all the systems to make you beholden to that button being able to so easily push your problem away are now the people that you have to be, you know, dealing with as your control state. And so, like, that's the whole thing, is like, if you can get a society to the point to where they don't even know how to understand the technology, let alone barely use it, because we're all kind of like functional iPad kids is what they're trying to train us to be. And if you don't have any kind of you know, like, existential crisis or external experiences that are pushing against you to kind of like go against that system that's making everything so frictionless, and that's a word they will use a lot in these articles, because they want everything to just slide and glide, and they just want to lube you up and just kind of like, you know, give you the business, right? And so, like, that's the situation that this is presenting, is if people are so readily available to just use technology that they don't even have to think about, and then you're able to put into play systems of thought funneling that are guided by algorithmically, you know, programmed language library arrays, you can quite literally, you know, frame everything for people that they would even get that interaction through in the first place. And so that's what you're talking about in that human element, like that discord of the exchange of information. You know, we have opinions. It's not misinformation, it's not disinformation. We have opinions, we have our experience, and we have, like, you know, the way that we are jaded in certain ways, and, like, you know, our perspective that we bring onto it, the way that we think through things emotionally and things like that. And you can see that in their own language and in their paperwork, because same thing on both ends. And so when we talk about this stuff in a visceral capacity, they talk about it in a, you know, just a disembodied, you know, just kind of, when you ever want to see them be objective, it's when they're laying down the fact that they are completely dehumanized, and this is about dehumanization. Everything else that they put in these articles is the subjective language they use to kind of get you to go along with what their objective is, which is ultimately submission to a system that will undermine you, and you have to be beholden to it. And if you speak out against it, well, and then you quite clearly, you're the problem, you know. And that we went through all this effort to make a system that would make you having an opinion a problem. Like, I mean, it's just, it's such a thought paradox that we can live in a world where this got to this point. But the reason it got to this point is because, again, you know, people like the easy push button solutions, but that's why you don't want to have things in life be too easy. Once again,
right,
harmony is nice, but it's not everything, because if you don't have that roughness, if you don't have that texture, like, there's a reason why there's rhythm and bass in a song, you know, because like it's something that's different, and it plays against it, and you have to have that stuff to break it up and chop it up. If you're a scientist, if you spend all your time looking through the microscope, you're never going to write your paper, and if you spend all your time writing your paper, you're never going to look in the microscope. And so it becomes about balance. So that's the whole idea about, like, you know, them saying, oh, we're going to find a way to prevent people from having, you know, misguided thoughts and ideas and giving out disinformation. Well, how would you go about doing that unless you quite literally just, you know, handicap everything everyone says, thinks, and does, and puts it under a system of monitorization to prevent them so they don't step out of line, which is Harrison Bergeron. You know, that is the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these people, they believe that most humans simply want to be taken care of and to have peace of mind, so they don't have to worry about tomorrow.
Mhm.
And these people feel themselves to be like the chosen that will actually be able to give them that. And and I'm specifically talking about the World Economic Forum, but like, well, all of the people who have this same kind of elitist mentality. You know, it could express itself in a number of ways, through a government, through a World Economic Forum, through some think tank, through the United Nations. And it's all the same, like the same attitude, this like idea that, you know, I am going to replace God and I'm going to take care of you. And I know exactly what you need, and you will live in the pod, eat the bugs, and be happy and own nothing. And there are a lot of people who, you know, there is like this temptation to be like, man, you know, I just want to feel safe and taken care of. And this is why they constantly create crisis and, you know, all of this tension and stress around the world. They say the you know, the planet is dying. It's your fault. You know, men and women are not coming together. Where there's too many people on planet Earth. We have to stop eating all this meat. We have to, you know, let a bunch of people from like different cultures into our country because we have too much, we have it too good, and it isn't fair to them. We have to give up our traditions. We have to like, and this puts people in a state of insecurity and fear. And then they say, but I can save you from that. Right. And that's the thing that we will see. It manifests all the time. And it starts from a sense that these people feel themselves to be better than everybody else. They know what's best for you. They feel they're better people than you. And, you know, one of the mistakes that I see a lot that comes up, I mean, a lot, especially from, you know, like the people that are kind of like on our side, is that this is about greed or money. No, it's not.
Money's merely a means. Like
like these people have like money coming out of their ass. Like they don't need to make more.
Nothing.
Not only that, it not only does it not.
Money is more worthless with each passing moment. Like right.
Exactly,
now,
but they're the
$1 in my pocket. It's worth even less right now. Right now. And
this isn't. But that's yeah. So this isn't about that, because these people actually support our dollar going like all the way down the drain because they don't need it. So like this is not about money. And this is something that I can't stress enough. Even though these people are extremely rich and all that.
Biggest misconception, and I understand their heart's in the right place because they're like, well, we're gonna fight this like a good capitalist. I'm not gonna support them. All right, well, you do understand that you're not dealing with a capitalist, you're dealing with a globalist.
Yeah, they're globalists. And
globalists are like the antithesis of capitalism, and like the idea that corporations are the ones that, like, the reason why this whole attack on capitalism, who do you think pushes it? The globalists. Corporations.
Corporations.
If they were capitalists, they wouldn't exist as corporate entities.
Corporate.
It's so large that it prevents.
Well, corporations are themselves not free market entities because they are backed by government agencies. So they are essentially fascist organizations.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I know that word is overused, but when you have a merger of corporations and the government, that is literally the definition.
It's about he who has the gold and the, you know, like we were talking about, you know, and that's what this really comes down to. And I think that's the thing is, like, I hate the way that people think of the word fascism and what they like, oh, that's like stormtroopers and this and
goose stepping and racism.
Yeah,
no,
like,
it's not.
No, it's hand me your papers. It's please just wait right here. We'll be with you in 20 minutes. I promise.
It's every shop being run by a bureaucracy. Like it is the bureaucracy merged with our daily like
freedom, you lose
life,
liberty, you lose your opportunity to make decisions on your own because everything has to be guided by the state. And you know, like, and not to get like, you know, ultra like religious about this stuff, but like when you actually look at what, you know, like these people talk about, like you know, what is the devil? Devil's not about torture. The devil was about beguilement, about promising. The promise was, you send me down to the earth and I will bring back every soul to heaven, and I will assure you that they will come back because I will make them be good. That's why he's also called Set. because the way it's set, it's like a robot, ones and zeros. Everything has to be precise for a computer system to work. It doesn't allow for imperfection. And so like that is the devil. The devil believes in perfection. And that is why I do not chase after perfection, because I'm not the devil and I'm not seeking the devil and I'm not trying to be some satanic asshat who somehow thinks that I'm somehow above it all. I am flawed, I am perfect, and I am humbled every goddamn day that I make a mistake at some point in time, and realizing that, you know, unless people actually are more forgiving and understanding and appreciative of the fact that I'm just doing the best I can with the situation, I'm not going to make any headway or anything like that. And that's ultimately what, you know, what Christ-like consciousness and like the actual concept of forgiveness really is. It's not like, oh, you can just shit on me continually and I'm going to give you chance after chance. Like, no, like forgiveness is like, look, you do you and I be me. And like, we don't have to even agree on half this shit. And that's why we have like, you know, this nice fence between us so that you can like, you know, live your life according to your own dictates and I can do it to mine. And we won't, you know, we won't corrupt each other's shit by getting too into what should be a matter of privacy, because that's the thing that's ultimately being lost right now is privacy rights. Privacy rights are the most essential thing that we have as Americans, you know? And like when you talk about what are our principles and what are our values, you know, as you know, actual strong, independent individuals that are supposed to have God-given rights, that we are not to be beholden to an agency or a state or any kind of conceptual organization that wants us to be beholden to them for whatever reason. And for these asshats to say that because they control the financing of advertising and marketing, that they need to censor the world is like, how are we not stringing these people up?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, how can people just be so just passive about it? Because they're openly telling you right now, and it's only getting worse. And you can tell it's getting, you know, as bad as it is now, because we are actually openly having these conversations all the time now. You know?
And they can't stand that.
Right?
Yeah,
because it used to be, hey, we're burning the witch of the week, and we're gonna keep like low level gossipy shit, and we're all never gonna like advance beyond like, you know, this step, and we're all just gonna keep going cruising the block, come right back to the same fire hydrant like some dog and piss on it every goddamn day. And we've realized over the course of the last 12 plus years since Occupy Wall Street and all the fuckery that's happened to us all, you know, none of us, I think, are where we ever expected or planned to be, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you know, and that's kind of like in and of itself, kind of the gift. I am like 180 degrees removed from who I intended to be. You know, I was going to go to art schools and do all this stuff. So I'm going to like have materialistic wants and all that kind. And now what do I want out of life? I want to be able to grow my own garden and, you know, support my local community in an effort so that they might support me. Yeah. I'm a rebel, you know.
That is rebellious.
And that is rebellious. Right?
They would call you weird. Isn't that's the new word? We just say, oh, that's weird. You know, not cutting off your genitals and living as a woman. That's not weird. No. But like wanting to grow your own food and like be a part of society. Yeah, that's weird. That's where the weirdo is at. All right. So let's. I'm gonna read the letter because I think this is absolutely rich. This is the announcement about the. Oh, look at this! When I mouse over it,
the shutdown.
It's like a bubble. Look at that. You ever played Loco Roco? These are like the Loco Ro. Yeah, but when you mouse over it,
it's a perfect circle. It's a perfect circle until you interact with it, and at which point in time it does everything it can to avoid actually being pinned down by you.
Yeah,
that's marketing.
Okay. All right. Anyway, Global Alliance for Responsible Media statement on GARM. Today we announced that GARM will discontinue its activities. The Global Alliance for Responsible Media was a voluntary cross-industry initiative created in 2019 to address digital safety. GARM was set up in the wake of the Christchurch, New Zealand mosque shootings, during which the killer live-streamed the attack on Facebook. This followed a slew of high-profile cases where brands' ads appeared next to illegal or harmful content, such as promoting terrorism or child pornography, creating both consumer and reputational issues for brands. So I'm gonna say something about this. this hasn't changed anything. Obviously, like there's another content creator who I know I want to get on this show sometime, named BX. Her name is Rebecca, but she's Bex on X, and she does a lot of research into the online sort of grooming children into terrorism, into joining cults, into suicide. And so, like, what these people are claiming they want to address, they're not actually addressing. And the Christchurch thing, I could ask her about that. I've seen the video, you know, and but like this is like one of the go-to incidents, you know, not the what was it, the Tennessee, it was Tennessee, right? The trans shooter at the Catholic school.
Well, you know, the irony about all this is they're saying that because the internet is a medium for commerce and exchange, that because commerce is so important, society has to be stifled, rather than saying, hey, you know what? Maybe the internet's about more than just commerce. Maybe it's like a utility that everyone needs to have for all sorts of things. And so we can do a lot of this shit without it actually necessarily like being based on like, you know, just like the money of exchange. Like, you know, like, because I know, you know, the big thing here is taxation is theft. And we all, you know, because clearly it is the way they go about doing it. But, you know, when you're talking about what the other option is on that, and this is why capitalism is, while flawed, the best method, because capitalism assures for a, you know, variety of small class business people that all operate at equal footing. And we are, you know, and that's why it was supposed to stay that way, because once you get out of balance like we are now, where it's so, you know, lopsided to one end or the other, you can sit here on one side and say, well, I'm just trying to be a good businessman, I'm just doing good business. But if you spent, you know, decades corrupting the laws and doing everything that you can to undermine the value of a dollar and all this kind of stuff to, you know, prevent fair, equal competition, you know, that's the thing that creates this reality right now. And so, you know, like for them to go and say, well, we have to do this in the name of good business. Well, that's something that you didn't have to do in the first place. So you actually were doing this in the name of bad business the entire time, because if, you know, net neutrality doesn't matter, and if freedom of speech doesn't matter on the internet, and it's all just like, you know, a big marketing scheme, then, you know, why was any of this done other than just an elaborate way to keep us distracted while they went in and undermined all of our actual freedoms and liberties and our capacity to even remember what any of that shit means on our way to being so distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to this. So yeah, this followed a slew of high-profile cases where brands' ads appeared next to illegal or harmful content, such as promoting terrorism or child pornography, creating both consumer and reputational issues for brands. This is the pretense they're using to essentially like be able to because what they don't like about X is none of this stuff. That's what I'm getting at. Like all of this stuff that they're worried about, it's on YouTube. Like there's straight up porn on YouTube. There's probably child porn on YouTube as well, if you know how to find it. I don't know. I know there's stuff on Instagram that's sketchy. I know that there's stuff on Threads that's sketchy. You know, so and on Meta in general, on Facebook. So this isn't like an issue that they're actually trying to address. This is just the pretense so that they can have control, and they're going to use it essentially to drive. Well, they wanted to use it to essentially starve X and Rumble and other alternative media platforms of their revenue streams by saying, well, you know, advertising with you guys is dangerous. We shouldn't be doing it because there's child porn. That's it. Child porn. There's terrorist promotion. That's it. There's white supremacy. And that, I mean, it's just not true. You know, like we know, because I use BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey. I don't have a problem with it, you know. So, but the problem is that they don't have control, and that's really what the issue is. And again, they're okay with child pornography and like sex trafficking. I mean, what do you think that the wide open border is if it isn't like an access point to traffic children for who knows what? I imagine it's sex trafficking, but it's also probably like, you know, child labor, since there are more slaves in the world today than ever in recorded history. So like the idea that we're past that is a complete fiction. And I think that it's being used by people like this. I mean, like, if you are, well, let me finish reading this thing first before I do that. Okay.
Yep.
Since its launch, GARM has enhanced transparency in ad placements on digital social media by providing voluntary and pro-competitive tools for the advertising industry. These tools provide information to help advertisers avoid inadvertently supporting harmful and illegal content, reducing such ads from 6.1% in 2020 to 1.7% in 2023. GARM's toolset includes the brand safety floor and the adjacency standards framework, which have supported brand owners in their independent development of their own bespoke brand-specific safety frameworks to ensure that their advertising dollars do not inadvertently support illegal or harmful content that damages their brands. GARM is a small, not-for-profit initiative, and recent allegations that unfortunately misconstrue its purpose and activities has caused a distraction and significantly drained its resources and finances. WFA therefore is making the difficult decision to discontinue GARM activities. For further inquiries, please contact Will Gilroy at, and it's got his email. But we know that the Global Alliance for Responsible Media is part of the World Economic Forum. Not exactly broke.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's like, clearly you are not, and you're just blowing smoke up people's ass so that you have a, you know, this is why I said everybody should watch The Prestige. You need to know the principles of magic.
It's a good movie.
To exist in the 21st century, not only is it a good movie, but quite literally, we live in a gilded age of dark magic and, you know, sorcery and everything like that. And you need to know these. It's like, how could you catch a fish if you didn't know how to operate a fishing pole?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, how are you going to catch someone who's caught up in dark magic if you don't understand how enchantment works? Yesterday on Friday Night Tights, Kurt Metzger, I sent you the link to it because if you, when you get
I didn't watch it,
on,
but
it
go,
was,
yeah.
When you get a chance, Kurt, he was on a tear last night. It was like the thing that I love about Kurt Metzger is, like, I seem like I go out into the fringe from time to time, but Kerp exists, and so I'm like, no, I'm right.
Yeah, right.
Because he's talking about the shit that people don't feel comfortable talking about, and that's the most important stuff, because that's why we have to deal with Pizza Fries and all the stupid fuckery and like.
So we're talking about like the esoteric stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of that as well, and I know a lot of people are not ready for that conversation. But there is some straight up demonic shit going on.
And
yeah,
because you're either going to open your eyes to it and see it for what it is, or it will dim your sight and, you know, make you just clouded in your vision.
Yeah,
and it you know, I mean, it's like what when you talk about, like, you know, Star Wars, what the movie's about, not like how the movies are made and like what the quality of them are. You know. That's a whole other thing. But what they're about is how all this actual supernatural power works, you know, and we as mere mortals are, you know, the instruments of this power. And so, you know, based on our alignments and our, you know, and this is kind of where it gets into, like, you know, the light side, dark side of the force kind of stuff, your alignment, you know, and what, not to say that you're perfect in every moment or anything like that, but the thing that you will reinforce you. And it's, you know, and it's that whole kind of synergistic, you know, symbiotic kind of relationship. And what we're seeing with the relationship that they're trying to establish through these, you know, reservations of power. A reservation of power is never done for the person who has to make the reservation. It's for the person who wants the power, you know? And so this right here just saying you can have privileges and quote unquote rights, freedoms, and liberties up until the point that it gets in the way of us making money, and then shut the fuck up and know your role, which is to just allow us to deal with engagement. Because that's the other thing that they do say in the paperwork, is how the business world itself now is solely focused on the engagement, but they want to police the engagement, which doesn't even make sense, because engagement just means there's interaction, right? And so they're talking out both ends of their face when it gets to that part, because they
of course
like the argument, you know, obviously, because that is part of the engagement, but ultimately they're doing that so that they can do this whole other thing to ultimately shut down any dissent and any kind of actual competition, or, you know, an actual reason to try to live a life of forgiveness and compassion and understanding, because they're ultimately just going to avoid their judgment and forgiveness on the you know, eternal sense. So, but that's getting way out there now, so
that's okay. No, that's okay. But we should like talk a little bit about this NFL thing, and I'm gonna have to defer to you.
It actually
to like
falls right into this too.
Yeah. That's why I thought it was a good choice.
Yeah.
So why don't you take the lead on this, because you probably know more about this than I do. So
yeah, so all right, so like this article is kind of interesting. If you want to read this article, it's actually probably like because this is not too long, because this is basically they in the article they are basically doing a retraction, but after they get done, after you read the retraction article, I can kind of like
okay,
what it because retraction actually sets it up.
Yeah, okay. So the NFL is implementing facial authentication across all stadiums, but this has been updated. So the new NFL, this is the correction. You want me to just read this part? The new NFL credentialing system does not affect fans entering stadiums. In other words, fans are not part of the program. They will have their tickets scanned as normal. The new face authentication will become operational for the 2024 season for individuals with working credentials, team/game day personnel, vendors, and media. These people have already submitted their facial authentication, not facial recognition, as part of the process, and this system will make it more efficient and secure. The goal is to secure entry for thousands of credentialed media, officials, staff, so they can easily access restricted areas such as press boxes and locker rooms. Should I keep reading this bit? The NFL is rolling out. Yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Because I mean that pretty much sets up what's going on here. Because like notice how though they have a very specific modifier that they're using, credentialed. Right?
Yeah, credentialed as opposed to.
So this is the pattern recognition. This is the teach. We are going to teach you to be credentialed. And so like the idea of what is meritocracy, they're going to try to take the idea of I know what the fuck I'm doing and like I can actually just do it, to being something else entirely. That's the other big thing that's happening right now is getting the word merit to not mean merit. And part of that is through things like what they just said right there. You know, it's like, well, this is for accredited people, right? And so ultimately the accreditation is going to extend to everyone. Now, it's a misnomer, and they say that you're not being facially tagged or anything like that at the gate. But what does happen at the gate? How do you pay for these tickets? More than likely, you have to use a credit card or some other forms of digital currency that tracks to your metadata, right?
Yeah.
When you buy your ticket, it's got a barcode on it. That barcode is tracked to a specific seat in the stadium. They don't have to do all this big other stuff because they've already collected your data and everything like that. All you're doing is RSVPing at the doorway saying, I'm this guy, this is where I'm sitting, and all that information that you have on me now that you already collected, you can now match to my face, and now you'll be able to recognize it wherever I go based on this. That's what this is. This is the bread and circus to get people to onboard to shit that they otherwise wouldn't do, you know, because they wouldn't. And they're not thinking about how, like, you know, I paid for this with my credit card, and now my credit card's going to like track. Because they don't have to make you scan your eyeball or anything like that, because they've already got all that information. they do that in movies to make it seem like, wow, that's really extreme and like, like upset
Yeah.
about doing that sort of thing.
Oh, they already do that. Like my phone has
No,
like,
it's stupid.
facial recognition on it. So
Exactly. I have a stupid phone that I want to just use passcodes on. Every time I try to just put in passcode, do you want to put in your biometric information? No.
no.
Well, then I'm not going to save your passwords. All right.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah, they like get your
passwords.
fingerprints and everything. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So this is like
'Cause, yeah, if you buy a Samsung phone nowadays, you aren't supposed to put passwords into it. You're just supposed to let your finger. And the reason why they do that is because in the Constitution, that thing that damn piece of paper, as George Bush Jr. liked to call it. They don't have the right to take information from you or this or that. But if I have technology on this phone that I can just go and put it in front of your face and it's going to like capture your retina and scan it, or I can just go and put your thumb on the phone, they're legally allowed to do that.
Mhm.
And so like your ability to have rights to privacy and to prevent yourself from like everything they're talking about doing, these reservations of power, is stuff that we used to have, only they were reserved under the concept of privacy rights. And now everything's being reserved under the concept of security rights, which is the undermining of the very institution of what it means to be an American.
Yeah.
So that's where I look at this stuff, and the idea they're going to use football, one of the most American pastimes that people engage in.
That's how it starts. So like, I know that there are people who watch us that are not into sports ball, but it's important this because
but it's
this is but this is how they get the foot in the door, and then it's everywhere. So yeah, I mean, like you have to, because like there are people who are gonna be like, well, I mean, I really want to go to the game. I know they issued this retraction where they were like, well, this isn't for like regular goers. This is for everybody else. And it's like, come on, like we know that you'd love to be able to do this to everybody, especially the people who are attending. But even then, all you got to do is like, then maybe their TV at home is scanning them. Their phones are scanning them. Like it's not like this is a secret. I mean, we are all aware of
technology
this
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not.
A lot of
I mean, who knows what else is out there right now? Yeah.
This data tracking tech is, even its just most pedestrian forms is decades old, but like,
For sure.
the stuff there is more kind of I guess discreet. That's 15, 20 years old. That's what I went to college for, was interactive design. It wasn't just game development. Interactive design pertains to using RFID frequencies to turn things on and off, ways to monitor, all this kind of stuff. The reason why I had so many problems with my model initially, on these broadcasts is because I was, it doesn't cost anything to write a script, but it does tax a system to process it, right? And so I write a novel that my character is not ready to read right now. And so like, and that's kind of the situation is like, a lot of people, as you say, like you're not interested in this, you don't want to care about it. And I understand that, but it's kind of like that whole thing about like, I'm,
yeah, go ahead.
Like even if you're not into politics, the people, it's not about so much about you not being into politics. The people that, are into it are the ones who are going to be affecting you. And that's where you have to at least kind of have a working knowledge of it. It's like, I'm not the world's greatest fisherman, but as stated, I can at least go out and catch a fish if I had to,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Guys, if you want to send us a message, I think Rumble has Rumble Rants activated if you want to send them through. I don't think that I'm still waiting to get like the YouTube channel monetized so that we can get super chats and stuff and memberships. There is definitely stuff like that I want to do, and I hope that you guys will come on. We do these shows twice a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays right now. Maybe in the future we'll be able to do more. It's just that I also want to do game streams, and I'm working over at Honey Badger Radio, which is most of my time. Oh, and I got one right when I said this. NovaFan21 gave us a Rumble rant. Here's a Rumble chan for you. Maybe the folks over at Rumble will notice her and give her the respect she deserves. NovaFan21 gave us $1 and says they'll use spying tech on us for our hobbies, but they call it racist to verify votes for presidential elections really makes you think. I was going to mention that too. I was going to say that, like, you know, this is why we need paper ballots and we need ID and we need to do everything manually, because it is through these methods that they're going to subvert. And, you know, when you also take into consideration the fact that deepfake technology is getting extremely sophisticated, and what we don't see is probably way more cutting edge and more sophisticated than what we do see. And that means that being
nanotech.
Yeah, we're exactly like what we're seeing now that's like cutting edge is likely like the garbage from like 10 or 15 years ago, or maybe more. So, you know, bear that in mind. Any other thoughts on this NFL thing? Looks like people are,
like I said, it just kind of dovetailed into the stuff that we were talking about, and but I'm not a big football fan, so like beyond that though, like,
but
this is just the beginning.
Doesn't matter, because if we're learning it,
that's right, and that's the point, because this is just the beginning, because this will end up, if you want to go watch a concert, it'll be there. If you want to go watch a movie, it'll be there. If you want to watch, if you want to go buy groceries, it's gonna be there. That's what all this is, you know, this is leading it into your life, and they put it in a place that's desirable, a luxury, you know, like that. Oh, well, I'll pay a little bit extra expense, whatever, you know, like, and this is how they ramped up our economy, like where everything costs at least 30% more, if not 300% more than it cost, you know, a mere 5 years ago. And it's all by doing it in these you know, instances where it's like, oh well, I'm gonna get you on the thing that you have a hard time saying no to. And then, you know, when you're used to paying it on something like this, then I can go and put it on something you actually need. And how are you going to complain about something you actually need, other than just complain about like the rising cost of everything and goddamn the politics and and it's like, yeah, but it's not the politics, it's the marketing. If one thing people need to learn more than anything is the marketing, not the money. Right? They're concerned about the marketing, not the money. The money is the means by which they do the marketing. And if they get you to believe that somehow, like, because I've got this working title of a possible, you know, series called insert tokens, right? And the whole idea behind insert tokens, you know, is it's play on words, for one thing, like obviously arcade games and all that, but the tokens of which I speak is what we're doing through these proposed digital currency systems. And by that, I don't mean necessarily Bitcoin or the CBD or anything like that. I'm talking about, like, you know, when I go and play a video game, like live service model stuff, and like what you were showing yesterday, you played 2 games yesterday on your live stream. And it was,
I did.
The first one was some corporate, you know, it was all right. It was just like corporate, you know, Warner Brothers presents Smash Brothers with Warner Brothers characters. And it just kind of like, I was like, oh, whatever. But then you played that second game that was probably made by like 3 people at most.
Hashtag blood. Awesome.
Yeah, dude, that game.
Awesome. Yeah. I was like, I love it. I mean, I haven't played much, obviously, but yeah. You can feel, the thing is, you can tell that the people involved, they were in love with the creation. Like, you can feel the love. You know how people say, like, yeah, you play a little girl, yeah.
Privileged white guys who, like,
of course,
immediately hate that shit. And as soon as you start playing that, I was immediately like, she said something, I was like, that sounds kind of like a little, like, you know, flowery language, like, but maybe that's the character. And immediately, like, within 2 minutes, you're talking to her Chad dad, and he's just like, you know, some base dude talking about like all this, like, you know, tech stuff, and it's like, oh no, they actually just understand characterization. Like, she's just like that.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah,
you know.
B-Man, welcome to the show. Is a dude using a little girl avatar? Yes, but it is not a conflict of identity. I know I am a man, born a man, and I will die a man. But this character that I'm using as my avatar is important, more important than me, because this is Vivian James, and you like learn the lore of Vivian James. It's over 10 years old, and it will pay off. So an RIP Alec Haloka, by the way. And the Fine Young Capitalists are the ones who created this avatar, and I use it. She is the symbol of Gamergate. That's all it is. So, but it fooled you. Yes, I am not confused about my gender. And if I could, and I'm working on it, what I want to do is I want to make my wife use the Vivian James avatar, and I'll go back to using the Shiba Inu, and then it'll work. But I mean, like, it's hard to talk her into this stuff. So, is that dog alive? Yes, Jojo is actually a dog, and he's asleep. Jojo, how you doing, buddy? He opened his eye. He's looking at me like, why are you bothering me? But anyway, okay.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's what it is, B-Man. I hope that you understand that I am a man, but I'm using a female avatar because it is more important than I am. Vivian lives, and she will. He's one of your people.
He's one of my chat compatriots from the Badger's Den, and
oh, yeah. You know what? I've been in.
After all.
Sometimes I'm in the chat on Nerd Wars, and I think that does B-Man go there?
Oh yeah.
So I think I've seen him in the chat.
I'm usually racing him to see who claims the first comment on streams generally.
I see. Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, I care a lot about Vivian James. I think she's a great mascot for Gamergate, but unfortunately, I am a dude. So I'm just making the most of what is.
Right.
Think of me like a Rev says Desu or whatever his name is. But anyway, all right. Let's
pitch shifter or something.
Yeah, I mean, I could make a boy version of Vivian, but I don't know. I feel like that would be something wrong with that.
Then it would miss the point, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it would miss the point. It would miss the point. But anyway, okay. So #blood, great game. Probably do some more streaming of that later in the week. I don't know. But let us, in the meantime, move on to the next story. So I wanted to. That was basically the bit with GARM and
yeah, those are our big things. Now we just gotta have fun.
Yeah, let's have a little bit of fun. So this is a new thing that I just learned about that I thought was kind of hilarious. This is from Bounty into Comics. Shout out to John Delarose, who is the editor-in-chief at Bounty into Comics. And he has this news article that I could not resist sharing. Baldur's Gate 3 developers sorely disappointed that most popular character creation option is a white human male. So I didn't, not what I expected, to be honest. Not what I expected. But okay, let's look at this. Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian Studios has
his money.
Yeah, male, pale, and the Holy Grail. So Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian Studios has urged their player base to explore more character creation options after discovering that the game's most popular choices resulted in white human male adventurers. You know what? It's funny because I've been playing Baldur's Gate. Well, I haven't in a little while, but I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 and I didn't actually do that. I mean, my first character was a Dragonborn because I like the Dragonborn. They look cool to me. And then I think I did Badger's Gate, and in Badger's Gate, I basically made a whole party made up of everyone that works at Honey Badger Radio. And so they were, but I tried to like mix it up, because I like the variety. Like, oh, here's a half orc, here's a elf, and here's a half elf, etc.
Right, back when like that kind of thing mattered.
Yeah, but I mean,
unlike with D&D where it's all just superficial bullshit now.
Yeah. Robert Johnson says, I rolled a half orc, Larian, don't look at me. Norwegian Black Templar says, it's almost like the average gamer is a straight white man. I mean, I think that maybe that, I mean, that's true, but I also think that in general, a lot of people that when they are given the customization, they don't really like go into it too much. They just kind of like make a
game.
Yeah, they just want to get into the game, so they just kind of like go through it quickly, and I think that like humans, there are mechanical reasons to pick humans over say other races. So, but they certainly
they've done studies when you're learning. If you actually learn from something that looks more like, that's why they're using all these AIs, and that's one of the things. Like if you look in their languaged articles, it's part of the sell job is. Oh, well, people like to learn from, it's part of the reason why, I was like, hey, I can be problematic white guy as a cartoon character, because I'm a 40-year-old white dude. Most people don't want to like that might be a little too confining for some people, and so this right here is a little bit easier to kind of work as the intermediary, and they do the same thing for the same reasons.
Yep.
To just kind of like make it a little bit, it's like, oh, I have a very punchable face. It is, whether I like it or not. Like some people, even if I gave you good advice, you probably wouldn't want to take it. But at least if I do it like this, with this kind of silly character, then it's a little bit easier to take. Because obviously I'm a work of fiction. So whatever I'm saying is, up to you to accept and leave the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that a lot of times people don't think about it, and maybe there is like also this like thing of, when you are playing these kinds of games, you need somebody to be the straight man, the kind of default, the middle of the road guy, and I think that because the game itself already throws a bunch of like crazy, weird, diversity that's even a little abnormal, even for Dungeons and Dragons, then I think somebody's like, well, I want to bring some sanity into this and just make a dude, make literally me is what they call it.
There's also, I think, a lot of projection in the game industry in terms of what people want as an audience that comes from the game designers themselves. So like they're like, oh, I would love to make a character and I would spend 15-20 hours. Like I do that. I right now my VTuber model, I'm in the midst of just kind of learning my tools and learning everything so that I can ultimately get facial hair and, start with a 5 o'clock shadow and work my way to a beard. And
they don't have that. Yeah.
They don't have it directly, but I'm the kind of guy who's willing to figure it out. So
there is a way. There is a workaround.
Yeah. And I'm working on those ways. And that's the thing is like, that's me. And if I were to assume everybody would do things the way that I would do it, that would no. Like I build my own shit all the time, and and as much as I can appreciate when other people do that kind of stuff, they're not beholden to like my way of looking at the world, my way of doing stuff. It's like nobody has to go and build every goddamn piece of the like everything I'm doing here on YouTube. I put in very little money for, because I always look for free software and open source solutions, things like that, because a lot of what I want to do is help people communicate more effectively without being beholden to corporate entities. And so, that's like this whole channel, everything I do is a reinforcement of that intention. And, and so for me, like it doesn't feel like an overreach or a detour to spend 15 days rerouting my audio table and learning everything in and out about all that kind of stuff. Because knowledge is power. And at the end of those 15 days, now I can actually be like, oh, well, you need me to help you set up your shit. I can do it, and I could probably even do it over the phone now, things like that. And so, that's, I care about the talent, skill, and ability set that I'm gaining rather than just kind of, the immediate recognition or anything like that. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm with that. I mean, this avatar, I had to make custom a lot too. And it was a lot of work, And I had to like, and I don't work with textures or anything like that. Like that's like I had to learn all of that. And I had to like customize, most of it, because like there isn't, for whatever reason, there just wasn't a Vivian that I could like make from the parts they gave. And it's actually funny because with this Baldur's Gate thing, that this is also the case. Like there really isn't a lot of options to make characters. So it says, I'll continue the article. So on October 9th, alongside a hotfix update for the early access version of Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios shared an amalgamation of the game's most popular choices in character creation. Though the in-game, the game's then 3-day lifespan that revealed the most prevalent choices created a white human male. We thought our analytics team wasn't working, said Larian Studios. We checked. It is. Larian Studios then sarcastically congratulated players for their choice of default Vault Dweller, is what they called it, given that the devs gave you demon eyes, horns, and even tails. We are sorely disappointed, explained the devs. Go crazy. We worked hard on this. Notice that what they're saying is, so you know, in D&D you have all these different races: elves, dwarves, humans, half orcs, half elves. But then there's also some of the more obscure ones like tieflings and drow, and they're like, why don't you use the demon eyes, horns, and tails to make your character? It's almost like that's where they default. Why didn't you make a demon? And when I did a playthrough, I mean, I stopped for a while just because I've been busy with other things, but I'm hoping to go back to it at some point in the future. Well, I was struck by how they normalized the demonic race in the game, because tieflings are supposed to be extremely rare, and they're generally shunned, and they're generally untrustworthy because they have demonic blood in them. But in this game, they're like, there's like a whole, like, they're basically a bunch of refugees that are like looking for a home. Like, they've completely flipped the script on it. And I complained on a stream, and I wasn't sure if people understood that, like, tieflings were a very recent development in D&D's history. It came out with the 3rd edition, and even then I was like, oh, that's a strange choice. And also they had the opposite of that, which were like these partially angelic beings. For some reason, though, those guys are not in the game. Not by default. There's a mod that lets you play Aasimar, but they're not in the game as playable. Isn't that interesting? So, like, all of these sort of like morally ambiguous characters, and they're playable, and it would be one thing if it was just an option, and these people, the developers at Larian, didn't care. But it seems like the fact that people are not like taking the bait and like making their, demon characters as often as they like, they're like, well, why didn't you guys do this?
Well, we gotta write an article about this. What's wrong
Yeah, well, they had to like make it address it in some way. So, let me see. Mr. 0303 said, I forgot which game it was, but it was impossible to make a white guy. Might have been Mass Effect Andromeda. Oof, my face is tired. Baldur's Gate 3, refugees welcome. Yes. All right. Anyway, just wanted to share that. Let me finish this really quick. Though Larian Studios' statement was mostly tongue-in-cheek, some media outlets subsequently used their findings to argue for further diversity and criticize the player base's character creation decisions. Even when presented with a wealth of options and opportunities, people still default to making what's comfortable and familiar themselves. Well, that might be true. I think most people generally that are not like creative, but there's like custom options, they'll probably just make themselves. Or if the customization is way too,
like, fine,
yeah, they'll hit random. Or if the customization's too like involved, they will, just like you said, pick one of the standard
movie from Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. You can get overwhelmed.
Like there's, I used to make character models in wrestling games. There are.
Oh my god, I used to do that too. Like way back in the day, I made all my friends.
Right. And if you go and you make like a character model nowadays, like 15 options on just facial features.
Yeah.
And that's just like, and I just mean like categories, not even like the elements within those categories. You got eyebrows, you got cheekbones, you got like, distance, you got like all. It's and that's.
Oh, I know. It gets crazy.
Thing. It's like
it's
like this whole goddamn like pretentious concept of these conceited asshats that are like, well, with the DEI hires of in the game industry specifically, well, there's 50% women, so that means we need to hire 50% women. You get 50% of women applying for these positions. Well, that's why we need to do these DEI initiatives and give them a reason to do something that they're not ready for. They have no skill, talent, or ability to do. Like, what would be the point of doing that unless you're legitimately just trying to undermine the very art form, craft, skill, trade, everything that's associated with it that could be passed down through that oral tradition, so that you can just shortchange us all and have a whole bunch of robots do all the work instead, and nobody's allowed to even understand the process, let alone how to actually have access to any of the tools to do it. And that is the reinforcing kind of exercise that's taking place in every facet of our reality right now, where it's just, oh well, we don't want you to do that, and it's like, well, you don't have a way to stop me. And they're like, well, maybe legally we don't, but like we just go and like, you know, like have this third party group come and kind of do a thing, and they'll you know, yeah, and that's, you know, that's a lot of how the Uniparty works, is through backroom deals and, you know, all various forms of corruption and legalizing their means to do so. You know, it's like how the United States government, they don't they don't audit people in the government anymore, because you know, if they audit them, then they have to hold them accountable when they find, you know, malfeasance, and so they just made themselves exempt from audits.
Yep.
There you go. Now we're legally absolved of any wrongdoing. We don't have to worry about it, and nobody's ever gonna, like, you know, like be able to do an investigation on us. And so now we never even have to worry about whether or not I'm corrupt, because why would it even matter? You can't even do an investigation, so I must not be corrupt. That's fascism for you.
Yep.
That's legitimate fascism, not, you know, the shit that they try to sell you to, like, you know, be afraid of.
No, for sure. So okay. So let's finish this section. I do want to comment something on the character creation system for Baldur's Gate. So just because from a technical perspective, I think there's something going on that I think is worth pointing out. But okay. Even when presented with a wealth of options and opportunities, people will still default to making what's comfortable and familiar themselves, said Kotaku AU reporter Ash Parrish. Yes, because Kotaku is a totally legitimate source, and they really get like the mind of the gamer. As we all know, Kotaku has like a tried and tested history of getting it right all the time. But anyway, shouldn't that mean then?
Think tank.
Yeah, totally not. So shouldn't that mean then when game makers implement these character creation engines, they should add options that reflect all of what humanity has to offer rather than just a narrow band of it? Parrish would also assert that the video creation or that the character creation options offered by contemporary games were not enough, and stated that video games in general needed more body types, facial hair, head coverings, and skin conditions, as well as accessory options to include hearing and mobility aids. Are you freaking kidding me? Okay, but let me...
You really could have just summed that up with like the Greta meme. Then just...
Why can't... Yeah.
You.
How dare you? Why can't we have... What did it say? Accessibility options? Oh, for hearing and mobility aids. So, okay. This is like... there's a bit of... A couple layers going on here. But I want to say for the thing that's funny about Baldur's Gate 3. So I was getting into 3 games at around the same time that all had custom character options where you can like customize what your character looks like. And they had varying degrees of customization or customizability, I guess. The one that had the most customizability was actually Elden Ring, which, you know, I made Giga Chad in Elden Ring, like the actual meme of Giga Chad with gray skin and the big smile and everything. But I also have an Elden Ring version where it's Kanye West, and it looks just like him. Like you can get pretty detailed if you're willing to put the work in, and you can find online that people have sliders, so you can make all kinds of people. Like you could make, you know, Austin Powers. You can make like whatever, right? And that could be fun. You can make Walter White if you want to play through Elden Ring as Walter White. You can make him, and they show you how to do it. That is a customization I can get behind because you don't have to do it. They give you a bunch of default faces. But if you really want to get into it, go ahead. I think Fallout 4 had that as well. As very in-depth, right? So that is what I like. Now, Elden, yay, yeah. And then in the middle, there was Cyberpunk 2077, which I also played. And that has a good deal of customization. And I think plenty to get like a character the way you want. But you're not going to be able to make somebody really hideous looking easily probably because of the setting itself. In the world of Cyberpunk, everybody looks good because everybody can customize what they look like. I mean, like in the actual game's lore, right? This is like built in, so you can, you know, do whatever, but it gives you some flexibility. The only thing about it that I think is kind of stupid is that you don't actually see your own face because it's all first person unless you go to a mirror and look at yourself. Or go into the menu, so so you're not really gonna see yourself much, but it's fine, right? And then you got Baldur's Gate 3. And one of the reasons why I thought Baldur's Gate 3 was interesting was I understood it that when it was in like beta, there was actually a lot of customization. And when the game was released, they reduced it a lot severely. What I mean is there's actually like half a dozen faces for every race. That's it. And you can't move the parts around. You can't increase, like the size of your nose or your jaw or your eyes or move them. You can't do any of that. It's just like, and the faces are all generic. It's like Caucasian face, Asian face, black face. And then there's like, maybe a Latino looking face, and that's it. So you have like a handful of face types, and there's male and female for each. And that's it. And you can choose your skin color, but it doesn't have an impact on it. So you can be like a person with like, for example, Asian facial features, but dark skin, like a black person.
Right.
And so I think the reason for this was because there was pressure to make it to where people want to make their character, like make it to where the characters will come out more diverse, because they limit your options. I know that seems weird, but they limit your options in such a way that there's only one.
Constraints make it more possible. It's like we were just saying with the Netflix thing. If you give people less choices, they'll make their own thing because they like it. If you give them too many choices, they'll just take what everybody else gets.
Yeah, but the things they choose to the things that they choose that to make more available in terms of options are really strange choices. So like, there's only in terms of facial bone structure, okay, there are differences in races. That is not debatable. It's just the reality. Like white people have a certain, or not, I don't like to say white. People from Caucasian, European, pale faces. No, people from like Western Europe, Eastern Europe, whatever, in the European countries, they have a certain facial structure. People in African, from African countries have a different facial structure. People from Australian Aboriginals have a different facial structure. Asians, like people from the Orient, they have a different facial structure. You can see it. And if you like paint the skin, whatever, it doesn't matter if it's white, yellow, pink,
right,
blue, they're going to look Asian. They're going to look black. They're going to look white. Okay. That's how it's going to look. So they limit that so that there's only a handful of options in terms of the facial structure, but they open up the skin tones. So you could make like basically an albino looking black guy, because you can make his, like, give him a black face, but give him white skin, or at least as light as the game lets you. And that is, again, that's going to be it's a choice. Obviously it's okay to have more options than less, but it's strange because what they're doing is they're saying that they want you to treat all of these faces interchangeably. And the faces are also that way, even based on the actual race of the character you make. So for example, you can make, if, I don't know how this is going to come up, like if you're going to understand what I'm getting at here, but if you make a human, humans will have the different racial like features, like a black human, an Asian human, a white human. But if you make like a dwarf, dwarves are dwarves. Like they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily look, Asian or I don't know, like South American. Like they're dwarves.
Species.
Yeah, they are their own species, but because they're based on a kind of Germanic folklore, they're going to look like that. So like they're, like the dwarves in The Hobbit or the dwarves from Lord of the Rings, like Gimli, that's a dwarf.
Yep.
Like that, like that's what it looks like. If you cast a black guy, it's going to look weird. It's going to be Rings of Power. That's just what it is. So it doesn't work, but the game, it encourages you to make your dwarves, elves, half elves, or tieflings into, weird kind of crossbreed racial, versions. And it just doesn't look, it looks wrong. It looks wrong because it doesn't fit the setting. And I think that's a weird detail that they didn't have to put. Now, if they wanted to, they could have made given elves their own set of faces, but they all look like elven faces, but maybe there's a little bit of variety in there. And the same thing with
Right.
dwarves, etc. But that's not what they're doing. That's what I'm getting at. There's a push for their sort of like it's the opposite of racial blindness. You know, the opposite of racial blindness is being pushed into character creation by saying these are your options. And it looks awkward and everyone knows it. And I think this is one of the reasons why the most common character type that came out was white human, because they didn't feel like anything else made sense, even though the game really wants them to try to make sense of that. And the other thing that is extremely weird, and I just got to say this, is that there's an option for some reason. So there's like facial hair and there's like tattoos and you can put, and piercings. For some reason, there's tons of options for facial piercings, which is another strange thing that doesn't really fit well into the medieval setting.
Right.
And then there's like this slider for vitiligo. Like just out of nowhere, there's a slider for vitiligo, and you can give your vitiligo pigmentation to all of the races, including tieflings. And it's like, what? Why this? Like of all things, why is vitiligo pigmentation in here? You know what I'm saying?
Well, obviously it's just a matter that like, the audience is composed of a whole bunch of bigoted racists.
That must be it. Yes. I mean, it's not like this is, again, like if you were watching a, I don't know, like if you were watching like a Lord of the Rings movie and there was a dwarf that showed up and he was like a hairless albino with vitiligo pigmentation for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
He was played by like some guy from like, like Thailand. Wouldn't you think, like, doesn't mean you hate anybody, but wouldn't you think this is a strange casting choice? Like, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just weird. That's all it is. Just weird. And when they put that in, people have a sense of what makes sense for what they are experiencing. So this goes back to storytelling. Well, they have a. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's just kind of continue. It's like the issue they have is with heteronormatives.
Yeah, or just the normal.
That's why they came up with that stupid word, because like it's hilarious to me, like how I'll be told like the things I say are somehow like modern day slurs. What the fuck is cis? I don't recall that being a word 20 years ago. It sounds like some shit someone's made up to like like tell me and put me in my place. So how's it like if I want to call you an eggplant and really mean it, you would feel as though I called you the worst thing in the goddamn world because it's about my intention, and
yeah,
I'm and
I actually have a soundbite for that. Hold on a second.
Right?
I do.
But yeah, this whole thing comes down to that.
You bought eggplant. Hey. You're a cantaloupe.
We're being bigoted with our heteronormative melon talk and all that kind of
stuff. If you guys don't know what that's from, you should watch True Romance. It's great. It's a great movie. True Romance, Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken. That's the scene. Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Two great actors.
They are, yeah. I like them both quite a bit. There was another thing I wanted to mention. So apparently this Silent Hill 2 remake is coming out, and there is no enthusiasm. No enthusiasm. And I am among those who are not at all enthused. Yeah. And I think that
not enthused, I'm quite pissed off actually.
Under enthused, yeah, right. Negative enthusiasms. So, did you guys know about this news about Silent Hill? And I guess also they're remaking Dead Rising, and they're gonna censor it as well. Of course. Yeah. I never played Dead Rising actually.
So, it is hilarious to me that I'm in my 40s. I play mature rated games that I was playing 20 years ago when I was still of age. Things that but for some reason at the age of 40, I need someone to like tell me that I can't view this content or think about it or like any of this kind of stuff without, you know, like the appropriate guide rails putting in place so that I don't, you know, have an independent thought and actually kind of like, you know, have a moment of creativity outside of what's been put in front of me. I look at this game and there's so many things that are wrong with it for a variety of reasons. Number one, like, you know, like obviously just doing the modern day-ism, making it all superficial. But when you talk about like, what is Silent Hill? Silent Hill is a game about substance. It's about, you know, it's not a happy story. It's a cautionary tale about like shitty people and like, you know, karmic retribution and things like that. Like there's some, so like, you know, the whole point of like, you're the protagonist, but that doesn't mean that you're the good guy. And that's the whole point of Silent Hill 2, and everything that they're doing is going to completely undermine and sidestep like the actual character of James and all of his fixations and torments and manifestations that, you know, are spawned from that trauma. That's the game.
Yeah,
they're doing everything they can to say, well, yeah, we like all those like superficial elements, but is there a way that we can make him a little less problematic and not so much like a creep? And it's like, yeah, no, because then you wouldn't be playing Silent Hill. Like that's kind of the point. You're playing as a guy who, not to spoil a story for anybody who hasn't played it in the 20 years that it's been out, but you're a killer who's trying to get over the fact that you're a killer, and you know you're doing everything you can to project your delusions in front of yourself so that you can't actually see the state of reality in front of you, thus creating a projected world of darkness, the Silent Hill that you become trapped in, you know, a torment to yourself, and you will spend your eternity caught in that cycle of torture because you are the perpetrator to your own destruction.
Yep.
This is the entire point of the game.
Yeah, Silent Hill is a special franchise, and I don't think anyone that works in the modern games industry is going to be able to do it justice. So I'm like the graphics it looks great and all that, but
modern industry.
But no, absolutely. Like I have a friend, Max Darrett. He does a lot of very good in-depth videos about games that he loves, and the one that sort of put him on the map for me was his video on Metal Gear Solid 2. Now, the Metal Gear Solid franchise is, you know, very deep, maybe like definitely too deep for a video game, but like Max made a lot of videos on it, and then he made videos on Silent Hill, specifically Silent Hill 2, because Silent Hill 2, like, you know, really say like evolve the storytelling.
Silent Hill 2 is, I think, like, because yesterday when we were kind of briefly talking, and I said MGS is like the exception to that rule when like
I was talking about movie adaptations of video games.
Playing a video game, and how like most video games are set up for immersion, but when you play Metal Gear Solid, you are not Snake, and they set that up from the get-go. You are never meant to feel as though you are that character. You are seeing what that character is engaged in. Same thing with James from Silent Hill 2. You should never, ever find yourself like, you know, getting so immersed in the concept of who James is, other than just kind of like, you know, like what the fragmented state of his mind is supposed to. It's supposed to be uncomforting. You know, if you find yourself, you know, actually like, you know, like identifying with James, you might have a few issues to work through. Because he's not well. That's like the whole point of it, you know. But the funny thing is, though, is you have like a whole bunch of delusional, sick people, you know, being employed to make a game about people that are projecting their, you know, ability to like, you know, avoid being delusional, sick people. And this is ultimately the product that you would get because, you know, again, they're just revealing everything that they are through their projections and what they're trying to avoid, because those things consume them in such a way and they have such feelings about it that they don't want anybody else to deal with the shit that they deal with, because they're the ones who actually have all these fucked up issues. And everybody else has to have them too, because I couldn't be the one that's weird.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, Silent Hill, they want you to give it a chance. and I'm glad that they're worried. This is good because it means that gamers are actually like, voicing their concerns. I've noticed that this discussion, and I know that we gotta end the show here pretty soon, but I have noticed that, and I'm really glad to find that this discussion is it is happening across the internet in a lot of ways. I saw a couple of really great videos that were based, and we could talk about this on a future show, but it was basically what happened to masculinity in video games. And it's oh, now you see it. I was talking about this 10 years ago. And now you see it. So, but this is okay. It's okay. Sometimes people are just late to the party and they're still welcome. Right. So I think that people are starting to see that. And that's good. Go ahead.
One of the things I think is kind of interesting, I'm just going to lampshade this one fairly quickly because we are here at the end. But with all the stuff we got going on gaming wise right now. Oh God, did I just lose my thought while I was in the process of saying it?
What? No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, let me see if I can get back to it because
you were lampshading
on. Yeah, it was in reference to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
God, yesterday and last week, and it was like I've been thinking about it for days. Now I just kind of lost it. So if it comes back to me, it'll come back to me.
All right. We'll it'll probably come back up on Tuesday. But yeah, the main reason why with this Metal Gear Solid thing, I just wanted to address really quickly was that apparently the Borderlands movie came out and it was a giant disaster, and I don't know why, but people are surprised. And all I will say is it's nothing to do with the casting, it's nothing to do with who's in it. It's just that the act of adapting a video game into a film is taking something three-dimensional and making it two-dimensional and trying to produce something at the same level. And I think that I'm not saying it's impossible because some things have worked,
but it's reductive.
But it's reductive because you are taking the thing that makes video games appealing, the one thing that makes it different from a movie, and you're taking that out and then putting that. And here's the thing too, and I'll just say this about that, is that when Hollywood wants to adapt a video game, what I think is actually going on, first of all, video game developers feel a need to that their IP needs to be validated, and it being made into a film validates them. Now, I don't think that is correct, but that's what they think. They think, oh, if my video game becomes a movie, then my video game is officially sophisticated now. It is officially leveled up, right? But movies are not leveling up. We have created this illusion that Hollywood is the peak of art. It is obviously not. And I think that I would not want to see my favorite video games adapted. People talk about, oh, they need to make Red Dead Redemption into a video game. Why? Into a movie. Why? Red Dead Redemption is a love letter to movies that have already existed. You can just go watch a Western and you're going to get that. Watch 3:10 to Yuma. Watch High Noon. Watch Once Upon a Time in the West. Watch, the Dollars Trilogy, whatever. You're going to get that, and it's better because those, it's like GTA is inspired by a bunch of crime films. Why wouldn't you just go watch Goodfellas or Scarface if you want that, right? But people think that the developers think that they're getting something more out of this validation, and it's just not that. And what's worse is that when you adapt a video game which is centered on player choice as the primary appeal, and you take that away, then the people making the film adaptation get to dictate what the actual story is. They get to tell you what the meaning is, even though you're the one that gets that, right? So it's I don't know. Robert Johnson says the Fallout series seems to be working out all right, but they're telling their story within the Fallout setting. I mean, again, I'm not saying it can't be done, but what I'm saying is that it is like you said, is reductive. I think that as an accessory or a side thing to a game franchise, it works fine. I watched the Twisted Metal TV show, and I thought, oh, that was fun, but I mean, the game is obviously a lot better, and I'd rather play that. So
I would also say a property like Fallout, when it came out, the reason why they released it all at once is that thing we were talking about earlier too. If I have, one episode to watch, I'm gonna watch it, and I'm actually gonna watch it. I'm gonna invest my time. I'm gonna oh, I only have so much to work with here, so let me figure out what this is. So they dropped all 8 hours or all 8 episodes, whatever, however long it added up to, and the idea that people are like, all right, well, I got to get to the next episode. I got to the next episode. And so it's that idea of letting things just kind of wash over you and pass through you without actually, taking the time to engage with the concept and the context of the story. And that's why all these things are just so superfluous now, where it's like, oh, well, they don't want you to think about it, because once you start thinking about it, that's when everything falls apart. And that's when you start, questioning, what is the purpose of this? Like, I just wanted to have some escapism, and why are you making that like the most impossible thing to do? And then so yeah, like I think that rather than actually trying to make amends on their end, they want to fix the glitch, and the glitch is obviously all of us people who are just being too, I guess, choosy with what to actually be considered, not just consumed upon. Because that's when they call us consumers, it's like, that you are a useless eater. We just want you to cycle this stuff, and what's that all about? And and the way that we find ourselves here, especially at the end of the show, just as we go through these things and what we're learning and what we can build upon, that's why we are now at the precipice edge of all this censorship. Because we, it's shit or get off the pot mode right now. And that's the other thing, that I was enjoying about Kurt being on FNT last night, is he was pretty much saying the exact same thing. It's like, look, these things are so brazen and not even hidden now. All the demonic shit, all the everything, because that's how clouded the world is. They don't even have to lie anymore. You'll do the lying for them, unless you actually have the eyes to see to begin with, in which case you'll never accept any lie that they try to put on you, or even in you, or if they corrupt the very essence of your soul. That's what a lot of this is ultimately about, and that's why they go after these things that speak to the human condition rather than necessarily us as individuals. Yes, they can do that, but if I go after a person, then I make a martyr. I make an icon, right? If I undermine, a state of being and how things actually work, well, then now I put all that, camaraderie and community and compassion and willingness to work together against each other. And so now, I just have to sit back and watch them grow to hate each other all the more, and do everything I can to just stay out of the fray, so that nobody that makes the association with me. But it's too obvious now. We know who the Rothschilds are. We know how the WF operates. We know what the United Nations is clearly, doing everything it can to go and put, global forces in areas that they're not indigenous to, so that there is no capacity for exchange in a meaningful way. Because like where I was earlier, where I was talking about too much harmony is a bad thing, well, so is too much discord. That's why it's called harmony and discord. It's that exchange. So they want us all just to be in states of discord without any ability to ever find harmony. And and that's why they destroy our entertainment, because that's where we would normally find things that we harmonize on, even though we have our own discords in terms of our alignments politically, this, that, whatever. We can have these forms of escapism where we can find our humanity together in fellowship, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they come after this stuff. It's just,
sure.
They don't want you to have any reprieve from hating each other and feeling as though everything is kind of stacked against you. Getting out of that mindset is one of the most revolutionary things that you can do with your time on this Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
it certainly wasn't easy for me. You know, and even still, like, people want to challenge it, but at a certain point in time, you know, it's like I'll talk about things like I said, like what Kurt was doing on FNT last night. He gets in there and he really goes and he just starts talking about some of the stuff that people are just like, I feel so uncomfortable about what
Not
you're
ready
saying
for this. Yeah, right.
that I'm going to outwardly, like, you know, do everything
Well-
I can to undermine, like, believing what you're telling me. And it's like, yeah, but why would I tell you that? What do I gain out of it unless I'm actually just trying to give you wisdom? You know, and that's the whole thing about wizardry is a lot of people are suspicious of wizards because why are you telling me this information? Why?
Yep.
I never knew this beforehand. Why would you give me this information? It's like, because nobody would tell you beforehand. And, you know, and I don't want to see like a further reinforcement of what I'm already dealing with at a more magnified capacity 10, 15, 20 years down the line of more arrogance and ignorance distracting from what it actually even is. That's what all this stuff is. You know, it'd be a lot easier if George Carlin was still around because then he could be like, you know, like words like shell shock become, you know, PTSD and things like that slowly over time. It's just the way to remove our actual experience and, you know, our energy from our own livelihoods. And that's because they just want us to be empty shells that they can use ultimately to house their own spiritual vessel, you know?
Yep.
So.
But all right, well,
weird thing for we're getting
it's okay. We should wrap it up here because I know that like the attention's getting divided. People are going over to Nerd Wars to watch their stream. So you guys go ahead and check them out. I'm gonna end it here. Next time I want to talk a little bit about this trailer for Agatha All Along. I don't even know what they're calling it these days. But I think it's yeah, I think that's what they're calling it now. But it is worth looking at because it's more witches. I don't know what it is with these people and witchcraft, but
almost as though they're trying to reinforce a theme.
Yeah, it's almost like there is a pattern.
Hollywood
all right,
women, what?
Yeah, yep. But anyways, we're the weirdos. So we're gonna end the show there. Thanks, guys, for coming. Thank you, John, for hanging out.
Always.
If you guys like this video, please hit that like button. It really helps us out. And I want to have like these sort of more, in-depth conversations about what's happening, so people understand what's going on behind the thing that's going on. But I still also like to talk about what's going on. So, without making this more confusing. Yeah, go ahead.
Say, if you do like what I'm doing, you can also give me a little bit of extra support over on my problematic white guy, John Richards / problematic white guy. You just look for problematic John or anything like that.
Check him out. Yeah, I'll start adding links to your. Yeah, I'll add a link to your channel in the description. All right. Well, anyway, thanks guys for coming on the show. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of The Week in Culture, and we will talk to you all in the next one. I'll see you Tuesday, if not sooner.
With the glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people, and maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
And hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse. Because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all pussies.
Yep.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent, the air is salt. And you breathe that in, and you can constantly taste the salt.